This is the first video of 2023, and for this video I thought I would look at limited studio space and how you can make your images pop with limited resources and limited studio space, and in this case the top of a chest of drawers for the image we're going to edit just now. It's aimed mainly at beginners, to be honest with you, but perhaps there'll be stuff you can pick up along the way, and it's using both Photoshop and Lightroom. Part 2 will be out within the week as well, as that's already recorded. I've just to edit that. Okay, what we're going to do is transform this image here into this image here, and I'm going to show you the techniques I used to get there. I might not be able to do all of them, as in all the cleanup, but I will cover some of them in this. So the first thing I am going to do is go back here and go into my image, which is this one here. In here, I am going to remove some of the specular highlights, just like that. As you can see, some of them are already gone. And then I'm going to zoom in and get rid of some of these. This is just a time-saving thing for you. So I'm not going to take them all out, I'm just going to take some of them out. And down here as well, perhaps a couple there and a couple there. And I'll leave it at that for the purposes of this video. If I need to clean any more up, I'll get them towards the end. The next step in the process is go in and correct the curve in this. Now we can't do that in Lightroom, so we're going to take it into Photoshop. So we're now going to edit this in Photoshop. Okay, now that we're in Photoshop, I'm going to zoom in, and this is the area here that I want to correct. I just don't like the kink in it, although that's already there. What I am going to do is I'm going to look for a straighter area in it, which seems to be this area here. Use the selection tool, select around there, and go Control C, Control V, which copies that up onto a new layer. I am then going to take that up to around about there. Now you'll notice that it is snapping into place, and that's simply because I have snap on at the moment. So I'm going to go over to View and turn snap off. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further with this, and I'm going to try and line it up here. So, and then I can deal with everything else. So what I'm going to do is Control T, and I'm going to hold down the shift, the control button. As you notice that the mouse changes to a white mouse there. And if I grab the corners, it anchors off all the points. So if I do that and get it as near as I possibly can and leave that there, and then go to Edit, Transform, and we now go into Warp. And what we're going to do is we're going to bend this round to meet that. So if I take that way and just deal with it like that, and then take this one round that way, and I'm going to stretch this up slightly so that we take our eyes off the bend in this, and push that back in. And I'm just using Warp in its most basic form at the moment. I'm not trying to do anything fancy at all with this. Just take that into there, and that into there, and then I'm going to click OK, create a mask on this, and because it's a reveal all mask, I'm going to work with a black paintbrush, take the size down, and I'm going to also take the opacity down a touch, so just down to 70, so that I can paint this out and hopefully create a nice blend with it. So there we go. So there you go, there's the first part done. Now what I can do is I can get into the adjustment layer, which will be hidden under my screen at the moment. And what I can do is I can take just the brightness and contrast, or the levels. And with this I can darken that down slightly. It's reading the entire image, as you see, and I don't want it to do that. I just want it to work on this area here. So I do that by clicking this button here, which means it clips to the layer below and only affects the layer below. So if I turn that down just a touch, just to about there. That doesn't look, and I'm zoomed in 139%. At the moment, I can't see much of a difference. And I can blend out slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this slightly. Control T, which is select all. And then I'm going to hold down the control button and I'm going to stretch that up. Just to around about there. So that's us cleaned that area up. I'm also quite happy with how it's blended in. So what I'm going to do is Shift, Control, Alt and E. Go in here and I'm going to clean up some of the areas in here, but I won't do them all. It's just to show you how it can be done. In here, I'm just simply going to use the cone stamp. Cone stamp's at 62, which I'm quite happy with. I'm going to select about that area there by holding down Alt. And I'm going to paint through it. And I'm going to do it again until I am happy. And the same with here. I'm going to select up a bit from it and then paint through. And if I need any more, I'll just blend. Control 0, everything's working out there. Right, I am going to leave that at that for the purposes of this. I'm going to take out that one wee area in there because that is annoying me, and I'm going to take that out via the spot healing. And we'll just do that. And if you want to, you can go in and you can take out more using the spot healing tool, but for the purposes of this video we won't bother with that. There we go. So we've got various options that we can use to do this. I'm going to zoom back out just now. This here, as you can see, is an A4 binder for holding paper. Now I don't want that because that just looks terrible in the image. So how I'm going to get rid of that is simply by creating a new layer. So on this new layer, I am going to take the polygonal lasso tool and I'm going to click once here, ensuring that I go over the edge of it, down there, back there, and then because we're on its own blank layer, I'm going to change this to black. I'm going to take the paint bucket tool and fill it in. I'm then going to create a new layer because we've got light on the bottle here, so we also need the light here as well. So what I'm going to do on a brand new layer is I'm going to change this to white. I'm going to get into the gradient tool and we are okay with that. Linear, perceptual, yep, we are okay here, and we're on the first gradient tool. And I'm just going to drag in slightly, not too much for this, like that. And that I'm okay with because remember I can drop the opacity of it. I'm going to create a new layer and then this time I'm going to draw in again about there. Yep, that'll do. Then I'm also going to drop the opacity of that first one just slightly, just like that, and then get into the second one and drop the opacity of that just slightly, not too much. And then I'm going to deselect so that we now have created light on this. Now, if I'm not too happy with that one, I can go Control T and I can squash it slightly, like so, and then just holding down Shift, bring it back in line to there. Let's see how that looks. That looks okay. Wee bit around the top there, but that's fine as well, because what I can go back in here and do is hold down Control, click in there, and you'll notice it's selected the black. If I go up here and go Select, Inverse, which means we've now got the outside selected, and hit the backspace key, deselect, that's now gone. So we've created a faux shiny surface with this. I'm actually going to drop this down further so that I can also take this down further as well, because I don't want it catching your eye too much. And this one I'll maybe take up a tiny bit more just to help with that. So it's creating that fake surface here. That line for me, the blend in that line in this layer here is a bit too harsh. So what I'm actually going to do here is with the eraser tool, and quite a big eraser, just about there. I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and go there. Now you'll notice if I keep doing this, it will keep eating into that line and soften the edge. So I won't go too far, and I won't go too close either. Just to about there. And that's an opacity of 53. Let's pull that back up, just to about there. And we're going to do the same with this one as well. So I still have the eraser selected. I'm going to click once there, hold down Shift, and do that. And then hold down Shift and do that. That for me is a bit neater and nicer for this. Quite happy with what I've done there, so I'm going to blend all three of these together, Control and E. But what we don't have now is we've got softer edges on here and a hard edge here. So how do we sort that? Well, basically what you do is you take the blur tool, 100% in this case, click once, hold down Shift, which means it draws in a straight line, click there, and click there. Now I'm still holding down Shift, and I'm going to go back up to the top, and then I'm going to go back over here, and then I'm going to zoom in and check it. Softer edge nearly matches that, so it doesn't stand out just as much. Any anomalies? There's a small anomaly there. Could we get away with it? For the purposes of this video, yes we could. So that's us. We've edited this in a few layers in Photoshop. So what we're going to do now is go back into Lightroom, and I'll show you the very quick edits in Lightroom to complete this image. File, save. Now that we're back in Lightroom, what I'm going to do, as I said, I'm not going to clean it up too much at all, because there's quite a bit to be cleaned up in this one. But if you want to, you can go in and you can clean it up however best you see fit. That is something that you will be able to do yourself depending on your image. So let's zoom back out for this, and let's go back into the masking tools, and I'll show you how to finish this image off. Once we take the masking tools, we now have background, sky and subject. For this, it's quite a clean cut image. I am going to choose the background. Now I expect it to take everything except for the bottle for this, and it did, which is rather good. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to take the exposure down slightly, and then I'm also going to dial more blue into this. Now, because this is black, it will pick up some of the blue, but what it will also do is it will allow this to pick up some of the blue, which is reflected colour. If I go too far, you get that effect. But again, that's actually not too far at all. So for this, I'm going to leave it at that. So now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to lighten the background as if a spotlight has been behind it. So I'm going to create a new mask. I'm going to take a radial gradient. I'm going to draw here to around about there. And the good thing with masks, they're completely and utterly editable. So if I want it bigger later, I can, and it will still read what I've told it to do. So I'll maybe take that down a bit slightly, just about there. And we'll see how that's going to work. So with that, go in here, intersect mask with background. Leaves the bottle free. There is still some in here. So if I zoom in, you'll notice that there is some of it on here. So I have to subtract from that, because I'm going to lighten it. If I was going to darken it, I would get away with it, but because I'm going to lighten it, I have to subtract, right? And I'm going to subtract using, in this case, let's go for a linear gradient, and let's just take that up, just to see what it's going to do. Right, there I'm quite happy. Let's take that up there. And I'm doing it with a linear gradient simply because I have a line here, and it's slightly more accurate than drawing with the brush, even with auto mask on. So I'm going to leave it at that just now. Back into the mask, going to zoom back out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the exposure up, so we get that effect. And that's the exposure nearly up at white, so, but we get that effect. We don't want that too much though, but I want to expand the mask. So if I go over the mask can drag that out. I can drag it down slightly, not too much though, and take it up slightly if I want. I can also reduce the feather, reduce the intensity of it so that it feathers out a bit more, like so. Now it's not perfect, but it does help solve a few issues when it comes to working in a confined studio space with the lack of equipment. I'm going to drag that down slightly there. Next thing, create a new mask. This time I'm going to select the subject. That I thought would do that quite well. I'm then going to turn the exposure up in that slightly just to bring it out. I'm going to turn the clarity up slightly to bring it out, and let's turn the sharpness up again marginally. I may dial in some blue to it and also some contrast to help with that blue. So we do that and do that as well. The next thing, one final mask with the brush, ensuring the auto mask is selected, and I am going to put my brush settings up to feather 100, flow 100 and density 100. Take my brush size down and I'm going to paint in here. Right, and like so. And I'm also going to zoom in because you notice I've went over some of the edges. So if I zoom in, Control and plus, move it down a bit. And while I've got the brush selected, if I hold down Alt, you'll notice that it's a minus that appears. I'm going to take the brush size down a wee bit, and that saves me going in and creating, because you'll see the intersect has now appeared. That saves me going in and creating a subtract mask. Now I'm going to do this quickly for the purposes of the video, but if you were doing it, you would go in and take your time with it. And also, we don't want to affect too much of this. I'm also using the feathering of this to just catch areas and take areas away. Right, let's go for that. And there, if I want to add to it, I can just let go of Alt, paint back in. Too much again, hold down Alt and use the feathering to take it away. And this is simply just to lift the shadows in here. So if I zoom out, Control Z minus, if I zoom out here and I begin to lift the shadows, you'll see the lid. If I push it too far, the lid comes up like that. So I want to go to about there. Some highlights, not too much. Contrast, we'll darken it down slightly, which means I can lift the shadows slightly. Some cleanups to be done. Let's go in here, zoom in again. Now that we've brought that up, I'm going to zoom in right in here, and let's just do a couple of quick cleanups just to, so that you get the idea. There, and on here. Right, I'm going to zoom that back out. So if I turn that off. So we have went from, if I put the masks on, we have went from there to there in a relatively short time. Now, if I was doing it, I would be taking my time with this as well. Just for the purposes of the video, I'm working quickly to get this done. So that's one way of pushing your images in Lightroom and Photoshop. Hopefully you got something from that, and as I say, you probably saw that it is quite basic techniques. Now I would say get it right in camera. That's what I would say, and that's what I would try my utmost to do, but that's not always the case, and that doesn't always happen. So sometimes you've got to edit to get the final results. Now that took just over 17 minutes, and if that was for a client, it wouldn't be any good. But that is when you have to go, right, am I practicing my editing skills here? Am I looking for my mistakes when I'm shooting anything at all, in this case product? And I didn't refine the image as much as I would have liked to, but hopefully it gives you an idea and perhaps gives you some notion in what you can do. Thanks again for watching. All the best for 2023, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.